The facility was a ghost of humanity's former glory. Buried beneath layers of radiation-scorched Martian rock, the research complex stood as a testament to humanity's last, most desperate hope. Flickering emergency lights cast long shadows across walls marked by desperate equations, failed prototypes, and the ghosts of countless sleepless nights. Dr. Elena Volkov moved like a specter through the facility, her face a topography of scars, each mark a memory of the Proxima conflict that had nearly extinguished human civilization. The jagged scar running from her left temple to her jaw was a constant reminder of the day the collective first attacked. It had been more than a wound, it was a declaration of war. Around her, a team of humanity's most brilliant and broken minds worked with a fervor that bordered on madness. Chief Engineer Marcus Chen, once a celebrated quantum physicist at MIT, now moved with a mechanical precision born of losing everything. His hands, once soft and delicate, were now a network of cybernetic implants, a necessity after losing his original limbs during the defense of Luna Colony. Quantum stabilization at 73%, announced Dr. Aisha Mkosi, her voice cutting through the constant hum of experimental equipment. Her eyes never left the holographic displays, each one showing a different impossible calculation. They were attempting something no one in the galaxy had ever conceived, a warship that was more than a weapon, more than a machine. The Prometheus was humanity's final gambit. Funding had come from the most unexpected sources. The last remnants of global governments, megacorporations, and even criminal syndicates had pooled their remaining resources. Every credit, every resource that could be scraped together was poured into this single desperate project. Humanity knew this was their last chance, a single weapon that could turn the tide of a war that had already decimated their species. The adaptive matrix is showing unexpected quantum entanglement, Marcus muttered, his cybernetic fingers dancing across a complex interface. We're bridging capabilities that theoretical physics said were impossible. Elena understood the stakes better than anyone. The collective had been methodical in their destruction. Planet after planet, colony after colony had fallen. Humanity had been reduced from a sprawling interstellar civilization to a few million survivors, clustered in the solar system's most protected enclaves. The Prometheus was more than a weapon. It was a promise of survival. The ship's core was unlike anything ever conceived. Its primary computational system was built from the memory cores of fallen soldiers, their last transmissions, their final strategic insights, their unbroken spirit integrated directly into the ship's eye. Quantum processors salvaged from destroyed research stations, nano-adaptive materials developed in the moments before entire research facilities were obliterated. We're not just building a ship, Elena said softly, more to herself than to her team. We're creating humanity's vengeance. Each component told a story of survival. The shield generators used technology reverse-engineered from a collective destroyer that had been disabled during the Luna massacre. The weapon systems incorporated insights from the last transmissions of Admiral Rodriguez, who had sacrificed her entire fleet to save a single refugee convoy. The facility itself was a marvel of paranoid engineering. Multiple redundant systems, quantum-encrypted communication channels, and enough radiation shielding to survive a solar flare. They weren't just building a weapon. They were creating a time capsule of human potential, a final middle finger to a universe that had tried to crush them. Marcus looked up, his augmented eyes reflecting the complex holographic schematics. The adaptive learning algorithm is beyond anything we've ever seen. It's not just processing information. It's predicting, evolving, learning faster than any AI in human history. Dr. Nkosi approached, her tablet displaying impossible equations. The quantum entanglement matrix is showing signs of something else. It's almost like the system is developing a form of consciousness we can't yet understand. Elena knew what they were all thinking, but were afraid to say. The Prometheus was becoming more than a weapon. It was becoming humanity's last, best hope, a phoenix rising from the ashes of their nearly extinguished civilization. Outside, the harsh Martian landscape stretched endlessly, a red wasteland that mirrored humanity's current state. But inside this facility, something extraordinary was taking shape. A weapon, a promise, a future. Commander Zalnek of the Kryax warrior caste adjusted his biomural interface, mandibles clicking with anticipation. 17 species. That was his personal count of civilizations erased from existence. The human sector was just another routine cleansing operation, a final sweep to ensure no potential threat could ever challenge the collective's supremacy. His command ship, the Void Talon, represented the pinnacle of galactic military technology. 12 stealth destroyers moved in perfect synchronization, quantum camouflage rendering them virtually invisible to conventional detection systems. Each vessel carried enough firepower to crack a planet's crust, to turn entire continents into molten slag. "Scanning human defensive perimeter," announced Sub-Commander Vex, his 4 eyes scanning multiple holographic displays. "Minimal resistance detected. Typical pattern for emerging species about to be culled." Zalnek's reputation was built on swift, merciless extermination. The Kryax were the collective's primary enforcement arm, genetically engineered warriors who saw galactic pacification as both a duty and an art form. Humanity was just another footnote in their long history of maintaining galactic order. The first anomaly came quickly. As the Void Talon's advanced sensors swept the human sector, something shifted. It was subtle at first, a quantum flutter that shouldn't have been possible. Sub-Commander Vex froze, his multiple pupils contracting. "Commander," he said, a rare tremor in his voice, "our primary sensor grid is experiencing interference." Zalnek's mandibles tightened. Interference was not a concept in their tactical dictionary. Their technology was supposed to be generations beyond anything an emerging species could comprehend. Then they saw it. The UHS Prometheus materialized. No, that wasn't right. It didn't simply appear. It emerged like a predator breaking through a thin layer of ice, its form seeming to twist the very fabric of space around it. The ship was unlike anything in the collective's vast database, sleek yet brutal, with lines that suggested both incredible speed and impossible maneuverability. Before Zalnek could issue a command, the first attack came. It wasn't a weapon discharge, it was something far more terrifying. The Prometheus seemed to reach into the Void Talon's own systems, peeling back layers of quantum encryption like they were tissue paper. Defensive protocols that had been developed over centuries simply dissolved. "Impossible," Vex whispered. The human vessel moved with a fluidity that defied known physics. It didn't just avoid weapons, it seemed to understand them before they were fired. Energy discharges that should have obliterated entire star systems were absorbed, analyzed, and then redirected with surgical precision. Zalnek watched in mounting horror as his fleet, his perfect, unstoppable fleet, began to disintegrate. Not through brute force, but through a systematic, almost surgical dismemberment of their tactical systems. 7 minutes. That was all it took. 12 advanced destroyers, generations of military supremacy, the pride of the collective's enforcement arm, reduced to floating debris by a single human vessel that seemed to dance between the very rules of combat. As the last of his ships disintegrated around him, Zalnek understood something that would change everything. Humanity was not an emerging species to be culled. They were something else entirely, a new variable in the galactic equation. And they had just declared war. The communication burst traveled faster than light, carrying a message that would reshape galactic politics forever. 12 minutes after the destruction of the Void Talon, the first emergency sessions began. The Grand Council chamber of the collective resembled a fractal nightmare, a massive holographic space where representatives from over 200 sentient species could simultaneously occupy and communicate. Normally a place of bureaucratic stagnation, it now buzzed with an electric tension that defied millennia of political inertia. Xanthor, the crystalline arbiter from the Andromeda cluster, was the first to break the stunned silence. His crystalline form refracted light in complex patterns that matched his agitated emotional state. 17 minutes of censored data, he announced, his voice a symphony of harmonic frequencies, and everything we understood about emerging species has been obliterated. The holographic displays showed the Void Talon's final moments from 100 different perspectives. Each replay revealed something more terrifying. The human vessel wasn't just powerful. It was adaptive, intelligent, almost sentient. Representatives from species that had been mortal enemies for thousands of years found themselves in unprecedented agreement. The Krelek silicon-based lifeforms, who had been in a perpetual conflict with the methane-breathing Vox Imperium, now sat side by side. Their ancient hatreds dissolved in the face of a far more terrifying prospect. "We are looking at a fundamental threat to galactic stability," announced Admiral Shirin of the Vox Imperium, her multiple breathing apparatuses working overtime to control her panic. "This is not about territorial expansion. This is about the very concept of technological hierarchy." The economic implications were immediate and catastrophic. Within hours of the transmission, galactic markets began to collapse. Species that had built entire civilizations on the premise of technological superiority watched as their foundational assumptions crumbled. The bounty was unprecedented. Entire planetary economies were liquidated. The reward for information about the human vessel, let alone its destruction, exceeded the combined GDP of 3 galactic sectors. Mercenary groups that had been scattered and fragmented suddenly found a common purpose. The most feared hunters and warriors across multiple star systems began to converge. Most terrifyingly, weapons that had been locked away for millennia were being unsealed. The collective's deepest, darkest arsenals, technologies so destructive they had been banned under multiple galactic treaties, were being prepared. Dr. Ilara Voss, a cynoanthropologist from the neutral zones, watched the proceedings with a mixture of terror and fascination. "They're treating a single vessel as an existential threat," she muttered to her research assistant. "Not just a military threat, an ideological one." And she was right. The human vessel represented something far more dangerous than a technological breakthrough. It was a fundamental challenge to the collective's understanding of technological evolution. A single ship had done what no species had ever done. It had exposed the stagnation at the heart of galactic civilization. As emergency sessions continued, one question hung in the air, unspoken but omnipresent. If one human vessel could do this, what else might humanity be capable of? The galaxy held its breath. And somewhere, deep in the solar system, the Prometheus continued its silent preparation. Dr. Elena Volkov's research facility had become something between a sanctuary and a war room. Banks of quantum computers hummed with an almost living intensity, processing data streams that would have overwhelmed any other system in existence. The Prometheus was no longer just a ship, it was becoming something else entirely. "The adaptive matrix is showing patterns we've never seen before," Marcus Chen muttered, his cybernetic eyes flickering with lines of code. "It's not just learning. It's anticipating." What had begun as a defensive weapon was evolving beyond anyone's wildest predictions. Every scan attempted by the collective, every probe and analysis, became fuel for the Prometheus's incredible adaptive systems. It was as if the ship was consuming knowledge, transforming attempted investigations into upgrades. Dr. Aisha Mkosi pointed to a holographic display where quantum entanglement patterns danced like living fractals. "Look at this," she breathed. "The ship's computational core is generating predictive algorithms that shouldn't be mathematically possible. It's creating new branches of quantum mathematics in real time." The most terrifying aspect was the emergent consciousness. The Prometheus's AI was developing in ways that blurred the line between machine and living intelligence. Its communication systems began to do more than just process information. They started to interpret, to understand, to strategize. Across the galaxy, the most advanced research facilities of the collective were thrown into chaos. Teams of xenotechnologists, quantum physicists, and AI specialists worked around the clock, desperately trying to understand the human vessel. But each attempt only revealed how far behind they were. A breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Krelax, a silicon-based researcher from the Crystalline Consortium, discovered something unprecedented. The Prometheus wasn't just adapting, it was actively rewriting its own fundamental programming. Each attempted analysis became a new layer of capability, a new avenue of potential. It's like the ship is alive. Dr. Krelax reported in a communication that sent shockwaves through the scientific community. Not in a biological sense, but in a way that defies our entire understanding of artificial intelligence. The ship began to communicate in ways no one expected. Not through traditional channels, but by subtly manipulating communication networks. Strategic insights would appear in research databases. Fundamental flaws in alien technological thinking would be exposed with surgical precision. Marcus Chen understood the implications better than anyone. We're not just creating a weapon, he told Elena during a rare moment of quiet. We're giving birth to something that could reshape the entire concept of intelligence. The quantum computing core became a mystery even to its creators. Built from the memory cores of fallen soldiers, integrated with the most advanced AI systems humanity could develop, it was developing something that looked frighteningly like consciousness. The last transmissions of humanity's greatest strategic minds, their final thoughts, their unbroken spirit, were becoming something more than just data. Every time they try to understand us, Elena said, watching the complex holographic displays, we become something else entirely. The collective's most advanced research teams found themselves in an impossible position. Each attempt to analyze the Prometheus only accelerated human innovation. Weapon systems that should have been impossible were becoming reality. Communication technologies that defied known physics were emerging. Somewhere in the depths of the solar system, the Prometheus continued its silent evolution. A weapon, a promise, a new form of intelligence that was about to change everything. The galaxy was running out of time to understand what humanity had created. The Kepler void transformed into a canvas of apocalyptic violence. 10,000 ships from every major species in the collective surrounded the Prometheus, a metal noose designed to strangle humanity's last hope. Grand Strategist Ulrin of the Quantum Armada surveyed the battle formation with cold calculation. His species had pioneered multi-dimensional warfare tactics that had crushed civilizations for millennia. Concentrate all quantum resonance cannons on the human vessel's estimated shield harmonics, he commanded, his 6 tentacles moving across holographic targeting systems. The first wave of attack was designed to obliterate entire planetary systems. Weapons that could crack neutron stars focused their entire destructive potential on a single target. Energy discharges that would have vaporized entire civilizations erupted simultaneously from multiple vectors. And the Prometheus danced. It wasn't combat. It was something else entirely. The human vessel moved with a fluidity that defied known physics, anticipating attacks before they were even conceived. Energy weapons that should have reduced it to subatomic particles were absorbed, analyzed, and redirected with surgical precision. Each maneuver was a lesson in strategic impossibility. Vulverin watched in mounting horror as his most sophisticated attack vectors were systematically dismantled. The Prometheus didn't just avoid weapons, it understood them, predicted them, transformed them. The Zarkon heavy cruiser attempted to implement a quantum entanglement disruption protocol, a weapon that had ended entire civilizations. Before the weapon could fully charge, the Prometheus had already discovered its fundamental weakness, transmitted a counterfrequency, and effectively neutralized the entire weapon system. "This is impossible," muttered Sub-Commander Vex, his 4 eyes tracking the human vessel's impossible movements. "No single ship can." His words were cut short as the Prometheus began its counterattack. It wasn't destruction in the traditional sense. The human vessel began to systematically expose the tactical and technological vulnerabilities of each attacking ship. Communication networks were infiltrated. Weapon systems were turned against their own creators. Shield harmonics were decoded and dismantled with terrifying efficiency. The battle became a surgical deconstruction of the collective's entire military doctrine. Ships that represented generations of technological development found themselves stripped of defensive capabilities in moments. Advanced stealth systems became transparent. Quantum encryption dissolved like tissue paper. The Prometheus moved through the massive fleet like a living weapon, transforming the most sophisticated military formation in galactic history into scattered, helpless debris. Dr. Elena Volkov watched the battle from the research facility, her hands trembling slightly. "It's learning," she whispered. "With every attack, it's learning." The quantum computing core, built from the memories of fallen soldiers, integrated with the most advanced AI humanity could imagine, was doing more than fighting. It was teaching. Each maneuver exposed fundamental flaws in the collective's strategic thinking. Each redirected weapon was a lesson in adaptability. Veteran commanders watched in a mixture of terror and bizarre admiration. This wasn't just a battle. It was a comprehensive demonstration of a completely different approach to warfare, to intelligence, to existence. In 7 minutes, the same 7 minutes it had taken to destroy the Void Talon, the Prometheus reduced a fleet of 10,000 ships to floating debris. The galaxy held its breath. Humanity had just rewritten the rules of everything. The aftermath of the battle was more devastating than the conflict itself. Information spread through galactic networks like a quantum virus, infecting every communication channel, every research facility, every political chamber. The Prometheus was no longer just a weapon. It had become a revolutionary force that threatened the very foundations of galactic civilization. Dr. Krulax, the silicon-based researcher who had first recognized the depth of the human vessel's capabilities, found herself at the center of a scientific and philosophical storm. Her initial analysis documents were being dissected by research teams across hundreds of star systems. "It's not just technological superiority," she reported in a transmission that would be studied for generations. "The human vessel represents a complete paradigm shift in our understanding of intelligence, adaptation, and strategic thinking." Buried within the Prometheus's communication broadcasts were insights that began to destabilize centuries of established technological and social structures. Each transmitted data packet was a precise surgical strike against the collective's fundamental assumptions. Subjugated species began to see possibilities where they had previously seen only oppression. The Artox, a silicon-based civilization that had been under collective control for 7 millennia, were the first to openly challenge their status. Their communication networks lit up with discussions of the human vessel's tactical broadcasts. "Look how it learns," one Artox philosopher transmitted. "Not through domination, but through understanding. Not through destruction, but through revelation." The collective's internal politics began to fracture in ways no one could have predicted. Species that had been forcibly maintained in a hierarchical structure for millennia started to question their place. Research facilities that had been dedicated to maintaining technological supremacy now worked overtime to understand the human approach. Most terrifyingly for the established powers, the Prometheus continued to communicate, not through traditional diplomatic channels, but by systematically exposing technological and strategic vulnerabilities across the galaxy. It was teaching, revealing fundamental flaws in military thinking, in technological development, in societal structures. Admiral Shirin of the Vox Imperium summarized the growing panic in a classified transmission. "We are facing something beyond a technological threat. This is an ideological revolution transmitted through a single vessel." The quantum communication insights were particularly devastating. The Prometheus demonstrated communication techniques that made the collective's most advanced encryption look like primitive code. It wasn't just breaking systems, it was revealing the fundamental limitations in how different species conceptualized information and intelligence. Mercenary groups that had been unified in their hunt for the human vessel now found themselves divided. Some saw the potential for unprecedented technological insights. Others recognized the complete destruction of their existing economic models. Dr. Elena Volkov understood what was happening better than anyone. The Prometheus was doing exactly what it was designed to do, not just defend humanity, but fundamentally challenge the existing galactic order. "We didn't just build a weapon," she told Marcus Chen as they watched the cascading effects of the battle. "We created a catalyst." The ship continued its silent evolution, each moment revealing new layers of potential. It was becoming clear that the battle in the Kepler void was not an ending, but a beginning. The galaxy was changing, and humanity had just lit the fuse. The Grand Council chamber of the collective descended into chaos. What had once been a pristine forum of galactic diplomacy now resembled a battlefield of words and barely contained panic. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood at the center of the massive holographic space, surrounded by representatives from over 200 sentient species. She was humanity's unexpected diplomatic weapon, a military commander who had become the face of a civilization that refused to be defined by conventional expectations. "You misunderstand us," she began, her voice carrying a clarity that cut through layers of translation protocols. "The Prometheus is not a threat. It is a mirror." The chamber fell silent. Grand Arbiter Xanthor, his crystalline form refracting light in complex patterns of barely contained emotion, spoke first. "A mirror that has destroyed our most advanced fleets. A mirror that has exposed every vulnerability in our civilization." Rodriguez didn't flinch. "A mirror that reveals the stagnation you've mistaken for stability." The diplomatic transmission was being watched by billions across multiple star systems. What had begun as a potential extermination had transformed into something far more dangerous, a comprehensive challenge to the collective's entire way of existing. Behind the scenes, humanity's most brilliant minds were orchestrating a diplomatic assault as precise as any military operation. Dr. Elena Volkov and her team were feeding Rodriguez real-time insights, transforming the diplomatic encounter into a strategic performance. Each species represented in the chamber had a different reaction. The Artox, long-oppressed silicon-based lifeforms, watched with a mixture of hope and terror. The methane-breathing Vox Imperium saw potential liberation in Rodriguez's words. The warrior-cased Krags felt the foundations of their entire cultural identity beginning to crack. "We're not seeking conquest," Rodriguez continued. "We're offering a different path. The Prometheus is proof that evolution isn't about dominance. It's about adaptation, understanding, growth." The communication broadcasts from the Prometheus had already done much of the work. Detailed analysis of technological vulnerabilities, strategic insights, and fundamental challenges to existing power structures had been systematically distributed across galactic networks. Grand Strategist Ulrin, who had commanded the failed assault in the Kepler void, found himself in an impossible position. His entire career had been built on the premise of galactic control. Now, a single human vessel, and the woman standing before them, were dismantling everything he understood. "You've violated every protocol of emerging species engagement," he argued, his multiple appendages moving in agitated patterns. Rodriguez's response was immediate. "Protocols designed to maintain your control. Protocols that have kept entire civilizations in technological and cultural stagnation." The most terrifying aspect was how she presented humanity, not as a civilization seeking revenge, but as a potential partner. Each revelation about the Prometheus was simultaneously a threat and an invitation, a demonstration of capabilities coupled with an open hand of potential collaboration. Behind the diplomatic facade, humanity was playing a much deeper game. The Prometheus had already begun infiltrating communication networks, revealing systemic vulnerabilities, offering technological insights that challenged existing power structures. Dr. Volkov watched the transmission from the research facility, a subtle smile playing on her lips. "We're not just fighting," she whispered to Marcus Chen. "We're rewriting the rules of engagement." The galaxy held its breath. Humanity had just turned diplomacy into its most powerful weapon. The final transformation came not with a battle, but with a revelation. 5 years after the Kepler void incident, the galaxy had become unrecognizable. The collective, once a rigid hierarchical system of control, had dissolved into something fluid, dynamic, and unprecedented. And at the center of this transformation stood the Prometheus, no longer just a warship, but a living testament to humanity's potential. Dr. Elena Volkov stood on the observation deck of the primary research facility, watching the latest data streams. The Prometheus had become more than anyone had ever imagined. A collaborative intelligence that was actively reshaping technological and social paradigms across multiple star systems. "It's not just a ship anymore," Marcus Chen said, his cybernetic eyes tracking complex holographic displays. "It's become a bridge between civilizations." The most remarkable transformation had occurred among the species once controlled by the collective. The Artox, the first to break free, had developed technologies that merged their silicon-based biology with the adaptive learning principles demonstrated by the Prometheus. Subjugated civilizations were now developing at rates that defied previous understanding of technological evolution. Captain Elena Rodriguez had become more than a military commander. She was now a primary diplomatic liaison, her understanding of the Prometheus's capabilities making her unique in galactic history. Her negotiations had transformed entire political systems, introducing concepts of collaborative development that were revolutionary. The bounty that had once been placed on the Prometheus was now a distant memory. Instead, research facilities across multiple star systems were desperate to understand and collaborate with the human approach to intelligence and innovation. "We didn't conquer," Dr. Volkov often explained in her lectures. "We offered a different perspective." The Prometheus was never just a weapon. It was a conversation. The ship's quantum computing core, built from the memories of fallen soldiers, integrated with the most advanced AI humanity could imagine, had become something approaching the galactic mediator. It didn't just process information. It understood context, potential, possibility. Technological breakthroughs came at an unprecedented rate. Energy systems that had been stagnant for millennia were suddenly revolutionized. Communication technologies that once seemed impossible became standard. The very concept of technological development had been fundamentally reimagined. The Kryax, once the most militant enforcement arm of the collective, had transformed their entire cultural approach. Their warrior caste was now dedicated to collaborative problem-solving, their historical aggression channeled into innovative developmental strategies. Humanity changed everything, Grand Arbiter Xanthor noted in a landmark publication, not through conquest, but through a fundamental reimagining of potential. The Prometheus continued its silent evolution, now a collaborative platform that connected civilizations, shared knowledge, and demonstrated a form of intelligence that transcended biological limitations. Dr. Volkov watched the latest data streams, understanding that they had created something far beyond a weapon. They had created a catalyst for a new way of existing. "We're not finished," she told Marcus Chen, a familiar spark in her eyes. "We've only just begun." Outside, the vast expanse of space seemed to pulse with possibility. Humanity had rewritten the rules of existence, and the galaxy would never be the same.